Hey, Lighthouse family, this is Aaron Ford, the audio engineer at Lighthouse. Most of the time, y'all hear Pastor Dan saying, "Come on, son, turn me up, give me some more gain." But today, I'm going to be sitting here with my dad
Oh, God
in
bless you.
honor of Father's Day, James, the storyteller, Ford, the amazing, the wonderful,
Oh, thank you
the
so much.
awesome.
Bless you,
And
bless
what
you.
we're going to do today is let him showcase his talent, one talent that God has given him, which is to be able to give laughter and joy to people. So, Dad, whatever you have on your heart, go ahead, say what you want to say. Let the people know what's going on.
Well, I just want to say good afternoon, good morning, and good night to my Lighthouse family. I've got so many friends, and especially to the wonderful leader and the head man and the shepherd of the flock, and that's the one and only my good friend and always will be Dr. Dan Willis. I'm a little nervous. You don't get a chance to come to Lighthouse with all your eyes. We pastor a church that we if I had as many members as y'all had, I'd just go somewhere and sit in the corner. We have just enough members. Well, let me get off that because then I'll lose the ones I got. But I just want to let you know we're grateful to God for what He's given us to do. I've used the gift, as my son said, and it's taken me around the world. I just want to say this before we go into any of it. I started out, my main concern at the age of 12 years old, I just wanted to be a preacher. And from that age and from the age of 12, I would go to services and I would be in the midst of it, and they would call me up to have something to say. And it would always be after a preacher had preached. And I really never liked to come behind a man of God or a woman of God that had a message. So I would use a little funny story to kind of use as an icebreaker and just to say something so it wouldn't interfere with the message that had been just delivered, or it wouldn't allow me to be a party to taking away from the anointing. And so that's how we got started. And at this day, we have about 9 CDs that deal with humor. And again, I'm just grateful. I've learned a lesson. God gave me an amazing understanding about the gift of laughter. Laughter is a gift. I'm not here to. When I grew up in the church, they told me, they said no joking and jesting in the church, and I'm not here to promote anything, or I'm not here to denote anything. I'm just saying, if you can learn to laugh, if you can have an opportunity, you change the atmosphere. And if not around yourself, you can change the atmosphere for others. I have a CD called How to Make Mama Happy. The first CD that we put out, and I'm not trying to, this is not a commercial about what I got, but I'm trying to bring a point out. The first time that I ever put something down and we used it as something that would be used for other people to take home with them was a CD called How to Make Mama Happy. And the whole gist of it, the whole purpose and the whole operation of it was it was supposed to give men an answer on how to deal with the woman or the wife of their life. And so I found out that if you can make people laugh at a situation that might be in some ways kind of negative or is getting a little frictional, it'll help to create the atmosphere. And I keep using that word atmosphere because it's so important. I used to say, if a man have enough horse sense to treat his woman like a thoroughbred, she won't turn into an old nag. You need to know how to make mama happy. And then we would go into the humorous aspect of it. And then we decided we wanted to just make sure that people could be encouraged. So I know you didn't have me on here to teach, talk, or to preach. You had me on here to deal with the operation of making laughter a reality. They were telling the story. This is how I got the nickname, the Storyteller, because I was used this, my intro or my startup was they were telling the story. They were telling the story about a man that was 90 years old. He had been around life's ups and downs. He had went through so much. And at the age of 90, he had nothing to do. He had found that there was nothing for him left to do. And he looked on the morning newspaper. And when he looked on the morning newspaper, he saw the words blood drive, blood needed for the boys that were fighting across the way. So he said, I know what I'll do. And that 90-year-old man went down to the hospital. And when he came into the hospital, he said, Doc, I comes to give blood. The doctor looked at that man being 90 years old. He said, sir, are you sure? He said, don't try to stop me, doc. My blood is as good as anybody else's blood. I comes to give blood. And the doctor looked and said, all right, don't calm down, calm down. And they took him in a room. They put a needle in his arm. And then after they took the needle out, they gave him a glass of orange juice and told him to go lay down. Well, the man went and laid down, and next thing you know, about 2 minutes later, he jumped up off the table. He said, Doc, I want to give another pint of blood. I feel so good. I want to give another pint of blood. And the doctor looked at him and he said, sir, you don't understand. You didn't give us a pint of blood. We gave you a pint of blood. And the key element is this. You can see. Oh, I'm sorry to give y'all a chance to laugh. All right. Now, the key element is this. Laughter is a gift. The Lord gave me a rhema word. And I know Dr. Dan has told you there are the logos and there's the rhema. The logos is the written word, but the rhema is when God gives you a particular word for a particular situation to let you see what you need to hear. And the Lord gave me, he said, Jimmy, there are 7 gifts. And I've tailored, I've never recorded this. I've got, like I said before, we've got 9 CDs dealing with humor, Hard Out Here for a Pimp, How to Make Mama Happy, Attitude, Life, How to Make Mama Happy Too, When a Man Loves a Woman, Chit-Chatting. We've got Moments and Passion, the missing ingredients to life, and then Amusing Grace. So we've got the CDs, but God gave me a rhema word, and I'm not, I want to show you, I've never recorded this before. So this is something for the lighthouse, that the lighthouse can be a lighthouse to folks that haven't had anything to laugh about in their house. The first gift the Lord told me, he said, Jimmy, laughter is a gift. 7 gifts. I'm going to give them to you. And I didn't get this out of a book, didn't get it from nowhere, but I got it from God. The Lord said, Jimmy, laughter is a gift. And I said, God, why would you say laughter is a gift? He said, because laughter lowers your blood pressure. It levels off your cholesterol. It stimulates your adrenal gland. It strengthens your immune system. It gives you the same amount of respiratory operation as if you did a 3-block jog. One good laugh. You cannot be angry and laugh at the same time. You cannot be upset. For you to be upset, you'd have to stop being upset. And you can see that laughter is a gift. And the point of it, they were telling a story about a little old lady who was walking down the street, wasn't bothering nobody, just enjoying the day. All of a sudden, a man that was up to no good came up to her and bumped her in the alley and told her, he said, old lady, you gonna give me some money. She said, young man, I ain't got no money. I ain't got no money. He said, old lady, don't you tell me that. You walk like you got some money. And before that little old lady could say another word, he pushed her upside the wall and started touching her all over her body, looking for some money. And after he touched her from the crown of her head to the sole of her feet, he said, well, old lady, I guess you don't have no money. And that little old lady, she had such a positive attitude. Beside the fact she hadn't been touched in a while, she said, young man, I ain't got a dime. But if you touch me like that again, I'll write you a check. The point of it, amen. Oh, they're going to cut me off. I know that was the end of this interview. My point of it is this. Laughter is a gift. The second gift you've been given by God is the gift of tears. People don't realize tears are a gift. God gave us the gift of tears. It's like a relief valve. It's like something that you can use in the process of dealing with life on the order of this life is ordered on. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, life, the way life operates, man goes through 7 stages. He goes through spills, drills, thrills, bills. If he don't take care of himself, he go through ills. Then he got to go get some pills. And if that don't work, he go through steals. And the next thing you're reading about him in the wheels. From the rocking in the cradle to the folding in the grave, you need to know about life. The story was told of a man that called up 911. And when he called 911, he said, they asked him on the end, they said, what's your problem? He said, I've got what's your emergency? And this is what he said, I've got 2 women fighting over me. And he said, the man said, now, let me get this straight. I don't believe it. You say you've got 2 women fighting over you? He said, yes. He said, well, why would you call us? You don't need to call us. This ain't the love line. Why would you call us? Because you got two women fighting over you. He said, because the ugly one is winning. You got to learn how to laugh at life. So the gift of tears. The third gift you can have is the gift of imagination. For you to be able, God gave you the gift of imagination that you can sit with your eyes closed or even with your eyes open and see things or do things in your mind that you've never done before. I use, for an example, they were telling a story about some mice that died and went to heaven. And when they got to heaven, the mice were walking around heaven so dejected, so sad. And they asked the question, they said, the angels flew up on them little mice. And they said, Mr. Mice, or little mice, why are you so sad? You're the first mice ever got to heaven. They said, didn't you take a good look at us? We got little bitty feet and little bitty legs. And heaven is so big and heaven is so grand, we can hardly get around heaven. And the angels looked at him and they said, is that all? And they snapped their fingers. And on the feet of those little mice, roller skates appeared. And those little mice were roller skating all over heaven. Well, you know what happened. After a while, a cat died. First cat ever got to heaven. That cat was walking around here with a big old grin on his face and a big old smile. And they asked him, they said, Mr. Cat, why are you always so happy? He said, why wouldn't I be happy? I'm the first cat ever got to heaven. I'm walking the streets of gold. I'm drinking from the crystal fountain. I'm eating from the tree of life. He said, I love everything about heaven. And then he said these words, especially your meals on wheels. So you got to look at life. God gave us the gift of laughter. He gave us the gift of tears. He gave us the gift of imagination. He gave us the gift of remembrance. You need to realize for you to be able to remember how great God is. I told somebody the other day, to me, God is real. He's like Coca-Cola. He's the real thing. He's like Pan Am. He makes the going great. He's like General Electric. He lights our path. He's like Dial Soap. Aren't you glad you know him? Don't you wish everybody did? He's like American Express. I don't leave home without him. He's like VO5 hairspray holds in all kinds of weather. He's like Scotch tape. You may not can see him, but you know he's there. He's like Almond Joy. He's indescribably delicious. And he's like Campbell soup. He's good. He's like Reeboks. He'll pump you up. He's like Bear Aspirin. He still works wonders. He's like Hallmark cars out on the hill called Calvary. He cared to send only the best. And he's like Diet Pepsi. When you got him, you got the right one, baby. You must remember that God is so good to us. They were telling a story about a man that went to a barber shop. And when he got in the barber shop and sat in the barber's chair, everybody in the barber shop, you know, your barber, he's like your confidant. He's like your counsel. He's like the person that you confide things to. And the man sat in the chair and he made a statement. He said, you know, when me and my wife have an argument, she comes back to me on her hands and knees. And the man looked at the barber, looked at the man and said, let me get that straight. When you and your wife, did you say when you and your wife have an argument, she comes back to you on her hands and knees? He said, yeah, I said it. And he said, well, sir, I'm not in your business and all, but what does your wife say when you and her have an argument and she comes back to you on her hands and knees? He said, man, that ain't none of your business. I ain't telling. He said, oh, man, come on, you got to tell me. And because the volume of the man's voice when he was speaking, it picked up at that moment and everything got quiet. Everybody around the barbershop were listening and wanted to hear what the man was saying, what his wife said when him and her had an argument, and she came back to him on her hands and knees. And he wouldn't tell. Finally, the barber said, look here, man, if you don't tell us what your wife tells you after you and her have an argument, and she comes back to you on her hands and knees, you might well get up out of this chair, because I ain't cutting your hair. The man said, all right, I'll tell you, which y'all knows yourselves. He said, when me and my wife have an argument and she comes back to me on her hands and knees, this is what she says. Come out from beneath that bed, you coward, and fight like a man. So, amen. I will do this so I can get to the interview part of this because I'm so excited about Father's Day and I'm so blessed to have a son like Aaron. But the point of it is the gift of imagination, the gift of remembrance, the gift of forgetfulness. I tell people all the time, when you get past 45, there are three things that go. First, it's your memory. And the other two I can't remember. So. But my point of it is, then the next gift that you have is the gift of today. They were telling a story about a man. This is the sixth gift. So when I get to 7, we're going to stop me. We're going to get to talking about something else. The sixth gift is the gift of today. Do you not know, not only have God given you the gift of laughter, and laughter is a gift. A gift is something you didn't earn or you didn't pay for. God knew you were going to need the gift of laughter in this environment that we're in the society now. Laughter is a premium. Laughter is paramount, because sometimes you got to look at a situation and realize, you say to yourself, God, I'm going to have to laugh to keep from crying. And then God gave you the gift of tears for you can be able to have the ability to have a release. He gave you the gift of imagination because you can imagine yourself. You can start looking and believing and thinking about how this is going to be when we come out of this. Then the gift of remembrance. The Bible said you got to remember the Lord. I told, excuse me, I told somebody the other day, God, he's God enough. Jesus was God enough to understand what we're going through. He's human enough, rather, to understand what we're going through, but he's God enough to bring us out. I said this before, on his mother's side, just talking about Jesus, and on his mother's side, he played with rocks, but on his father's side, he was the rock. On his mother's side, he ate bread, but on his father's side, he's the bread of life. On his mother's side, he drank water, but on his father's side, he's the water of everlasting life. On his mother's side, he went to the temple and was taught by the teachers. But on his father's side, he went to the temple and taught the teachers. On his mother's side, he looked up at the stars. But on his father's side, he's the bright and morning star. On his mother's side, he walked through the valleys, looked at the lilies, and smelled the roses. But on his father's side, he's the lily of the valley and the rose of Sharon. On his mother's side, he went to the grave of Lazarus and wept. But on his father's side, he said, Lazarus, come forth. And a dead man came hopping out of the grave. The sixth gift that God has given us is the gift of today. They were telling a story about a man that went to a gas station. His car was on E. He rides up to the gas station. He looks at the sign on this. He's getting ready to he took the pump, the nozzle off the pump, took the cap off the tank, was about to put the nozzle into the tank, and he looked up and he saw a sign that said free gas tomorrow. And he took the nozzle, put the cap back on the tank, put the nozzle on the pump, and came back the first thing the next morning. Now, the next morning, he was driving on fumes, took the nozzle off the pump, took the cap off the tank, put the nozzle in the tank, pulled the trigger, and gas was gushing like a gusher. Gas was flowing like water. And while he was doing that, the owner ran. I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? He said, what are you doing? He said, what are you talking about? What am I doing? I'm getting some gas. He said, you cannot get that gas. You are not paid for it yet. He said, well, I didn't think I had to because the sign. I was here yesterday, and the sign said free gas tomorrow. And the owner said, oh, you silly, silly man. That sign has been there for 30 years. The reason why that sign is there because tomorrow never comes. It's always today. And my point, my purpose, and my thought with this is enjoy today. Lighthouse, you're blessed. Lighthouse, you've got such a great opportunity. You're changing the world. Don't let nobody slow you down. We give you our greatest, highest condolences. We give you our highest congratulations and our salute. And sometimes you can need a condolence because when you're the best, everybody's gunning for you. But you have proven yourself well. Amen. Amen. I just want to stop. So they're gonna say he just trying to get on TV somewhere.
Now, you know, I'm grateful that you were able to have this moment. Hey, wait, this is a good moment. Hey, but you know what? That's what this was about, to be able to give you the opportunity to speak, to give the gift of laughter, of joy and peace, and also be able to showcase exactly what you do as my dad, which I'm really grateful for. A lot of people, they always say, you Jimmy Ford's son, ain't you? I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's
yes, I
Yeah,
am, I
Jimmy
am.
Ford.
And and the lineage that you have brought forth, it's showing very, very well in all
I'm
of your
grateful to
sons.
God.
They're
Amen.
all of us. We work in ministry,
Amen.
and we all are just going after God, and that's one thing that I can say that I'm grateful for. And you all can see it right here in my dad as the way he talks and
Let me sit up straight.
Go sit up for a second.
Yeah, they say he gonna have to help the old man up out the chair. No, I can get up by myself.
So yeah, that's I'm grateful for the jokes that you have said. And this week that we have coming up on Sunday is Father's Day.
Amen.
And just to be able to sit here with my dad, we both are super busy most of the time.
Amen.
Trying to get back and forth. I got my family. He has, us as his family, and he had his wife and the businesses and the things that he's taking care of, the church that they have, because he is a full-time pastor. So it's amazing to be able just to have a moment to sit here and to just vibe with you, as I like to say, talk with you, and just to pick your brain on things that's going on.
Is that word vibe like talk?
Yeah,
I'm from an older generation. So you saying vibe
like
I didn't. You're not talking about shaking. You're
No,
talking
no,
about
no.
articulating,
Right,
enunciating,
right. Understanding
pronunciating,
each other. Yes,
pontificating,
yes.
elucidating,
Yes.
and accentuating. I got you now.
Right.
It's an honor to vibe with you too, my son. Amen.
So yeah, and honestly, that's I guess the next part I just want to do with you. Unless you got more jokes. You got more jokes?
Oh, well, again, I don't want to think. Again, I've got, I have 9 CDs that deal with jokes.
So you got some
it's
jokes.
Not, and again, only reason, my purpose for doing this, what I just told you, I've never recorded that. So it will be saved for posterity at the Lighthouse. And probably, I probably won't record it, because we are always dealing with other. We have a CD called Attitude, and this is not me trying to. This is not a commercial, but the Lord gave me the greatest joy that I have is that what God has given me has taken me around the world. We've opened up. We've been asked to fill in for Barack Obama. We've been asked to fill in for Stedman Graham. We've gone around the world. Carnival Cruise Lines for 3 years in a row. They would bring me in, and I would host shows at Carnival Cruise on the ship, the Carnival Cruise Line, and for gospel artists. And so we've opened up and many concerts, and I got a chance to meet a wonderful man by the name of Dan Willis, probably 35 or 40 years ago. I know he was just a baby, and I was saying, young fella, if you stick with God, he'll bless you, and he has. But we've been knowing each other for years. He would bring me into the retreats, and it was an honor, and to be able to sit here, to know my son is in good hands. But my point is this: I wanted to throw this out because I want to just give you a treat. I want to tell you the secret how to do comedy, and I don't use the word comedy, I use humor, because comedy is when you'll say anything to get a laugh, and I'm not about that. We have a standard that we must connect and we must adhere to that comes from God. We have to watch out what we say, how we say it. When I told the story about, if you touch me like that, I'll write you a check, that is as far as we'll go. Everything else has to stay on the side that gives God honor. And that's old Jackie Mom's Mabley. So it was a classic. Every now and then you hear something, you say, God, and I used it one time, and it was appropriate. But my point, I drove up to a service. They had me to come to one of the largest churches in Chicago Heights. And when I drove up, they had on the marquee, they didn't have come see the storyteller and laugh. They said, come and see learn how to make people to laugh, to help people to laugh. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, God, I've never tried this before. I don't understand why they would say it. But God was so good. He said, Jimmy, just sit down and there are 5 elements that make you, if I'm putting myself out of a job, but I'm going to tell you anyway, there are 5 things. If you do these 5 things, it will give you, or it'll allow you the ability to be able to either make people laugh or use humor as a tool to encourage another person's heart. And so the point is this: these are the 5 things that if you ever want to take my job, or there's enough pain in the world, There's enough heartache. There's enough setbacks and heartburns in the world emotionally. There are 5 things. I'm going to tell them to you right quick because I don't know how long this is going to be. Number 1, you must first have something to say. Whenever you get ready to start, you shouldn't just, some people just get up and just, hey, you, with your funny, but you must have, if you really want to be good at doing and being a person that can bring laughter, and I'm giving you points, this is the secret. Nobody may have never told you this. First, you must have something to say. Then the second thing, you must learn how to say it well. You must, as I said earlier, you must learn how to articulate, enunciate, pronunciate, pontificate, elucidate, accentuate, and hopefully not too much exaggerate. Yeah. Number 3, you must learn how to be brief, because the attention span of a child is only a few seconds and of an adult is only a few minutes. The 4th thing you must do, you must learn how to read. And what I mean by that, not learn how to do learn how to read a book or learn how to read music, but you must learn how to read people. The greatest language in the world is body language and the language of people. And when you see yourself, a lot of times you may go down when I have to walk into a room and the problem is they say, all right, we paying or whatever we're doing, make us laugh. And you got to be able to figure out the crowd that you can fit in, get in, and be able to phase into, that they can receive you. And you learn that by looking at the name, looking at the people, looking at the opportunity to read. The attention, like I said before, the attention span is so critical, and you've got to be able to say, I got them, or let's keep going down this vein. And this is it. This is the key element. Number 5, if you want to know what makes a person laugh, is when you build up. You do the first 4. You build a story. You build a process. You build you build a way of expression. Mm-hmm. You make it like a story. You got their attention. You're drawing them, and then just when you get ready, you built it up. You make a sharp turn. I give for an example. Then they would tell the story about 4 men went on a business trip. One was named Joe. One was named Mike. One was named John, and one was named Sam. Mike, Joe, John, and Sam all were at the same convention, at the same trip. They all had a room apiece. And when they got to the hotel, by a mistake of the hotel, they had given away 2 of the rooms. So now they only had 2 rooms, and they were going to be there for 3 days. So when Mike, Joe, John, and Sam decided we can't go anywhere, so we'll stay. There's no other hotels available. We'll have to stay and bunk in with one another. Well, Mike, Joe, and John didn't mind sleeping in the same room, but didn't nobody want to sleep in the room with Sam. Sam had a snoring disorder. He snored so loud until it looked like the wallpaper was coming off the walls and the color was coming off the carpet. And they said, it's not fair. Mike, Joe, and John went to the side. They say, it's not fair. We're going to be here for 3 days. It's not fair for one man to stay in the room with Sam. He'll get no rest. So they said, I tell you what, we'll switch up 1 night apiece. The first night, Joe went in the room with Sam and closed the door. The next morning, Joe came down to breakfast, hardly could keep his eyes open, almost passed out in his food. They said, Joe, how was it to sleep in the room with Sam? He said, it was horrible. He said, my turn is over. It's your turn now, Mike. Mike went in the room with Sam, closed the door. The next morning, Mike came down, and he was so mad. He was so upset. He said, I didn't get a lick of sleep. It's your turn, John. Well, John had an attitude. He said, a problem's only a problem when you don't have a solution. And that night, he went in the room with John and closed the door. The next morning, he came down to breakfast, and he looked at all spry. Everybody was hollering. They were wondering. They were saying, oh, my goodness, he's down. They wanted to hear, because it had become a rumor around the hotel that if you went in the room with Sam, you would get no sleep. So when John came in the next morning, they said, John, how was it? How was it? Did you sleep in the room with Sam last night? He said, it was awesome. He said, I got so much rest. They say, well, how did you get so much rest? He said, well, the problem's only a problem when you don't have a solution. Last night when Sam laid his head on the pillow and got ready to start the snoring concert, I walked over to him, I leaned over, and I gave him a good kiss, good night. And he stayed up all night watching me. God bless you. Amen.
Well, that seems like all the time that we have. I want to say thank you to my dad for coming on and having a conversation with me and helping us to get through these tough times. Also, I want to ask that you share this video if this is something that you like. You know, this is part of our nightly 6:30 videos. Also, please subscribe to this page, the Lighthouse Church of All Nations. And also, please give to the ministry. This is how we're able to continue doing what we do, by giving to the church and to the house of God. So I just want to say thank you to my dad one more time for coming on and hanging out with me and sharing his jokes. I love him. Honestly, I've heard some jokes and even some new jokes today, and every time, honestly, like he said, it's about the delivery, but it's also about the heart behind it. Whenever you give these jokes and you want to make people laugh, people can feel that heart, and I just want to say thank you for that.
I thank you for, as the Bible says in the scripture, you make your father's heart glad. So you warn the name, and you carry the name well. And if life lasts, if life don't last, and death don't pass, and I'm out of here, I'll say, God, I've got my sons to carry it on. So God bless you. Give. Amen.
Yes. All right. God bless you all, and thank you all. And hey, coming up on Sunday is Father's Day service. We know on Sunday, Pastor Dan did the biggest joke of all time. I know some of y'all still mad at him about that, but please tune in on Sunday for our Father's Day service. Also Wednesday, which will be our first Park and Praise. We're going to be in the house not in the house, but we're going to be in the parking lot with the service out there, outside, having a great time. So please come out. And we're going to have radio receivers. We're going to have all of this ready for you all to worship and to have a great time in God. But anyway, it's been past time. We want to say we love you. Thank you for joining us and tuning in. And we pray that you have a great night, and God bless.